Welcome to North Idaho Experience. In today's episode, Eric and I sit down with Seth Green. He's a former captain from the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office. We're going to talk about the active shooter situation that happened at the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office right there at the jail. We're going to talk about the political situation in Shoshone County and some of the things that are going on there and that big shift in law enforcement on that side. And we're also going to talk about polarization in politics and how that's a huge issue right now. Seth's going to share some of his knowledge in the local drug scene and his future endeavors in that realm. Check it out. It's going to be a great episode. The story about the sheriff's office shooting is somewhat gory, so if you got kids, pay attention to that. It comes in towards the end. All right, enjoy.
Dude, it is good to have you back. The one and only Seth Green, who has been, it's been a wild year.
Dude, it's been a crazy year. It's been a great 3 years, though, altogether. I think I saw you guys last, 2 years ago?
It was probably about 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
It was in the dumpster studio, yeah.
Yeah, because we were talking about the fentanyl epidemic. Now that's coming.
Yep.
Yeah, but now you were wrecking shop over in Shoshone, kind of changed the way policing was perceived over there.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Well, kind of being conducted, and obviously you had a big hand in steering crime down during your course there, but you're not with them anymore.
I'm not. I actually just left a couple weeks ago. Well, almost a month ago now. I just left. Yeah, onto a new agency.
So what prompted that, man?
A few things, right? Up at my level, you do enter a certain realm of politics when you reach the captain realm, and so when one administration kind of phases out, the new one comes in. And so with that, a different direction was happening to where they were going to downsize considerably is kind of where the commissioners wanted to go. And the Republican Central Committee at the time is kind of in charge of that, so to speak. There's significant influence there. And so we got a huge cut in budget. So with that, I didn't see a way forward to keep my guys' wages to a livable wage. And since then, unfortunately, and I don't wish this upon anyone, they're actually down about 43%, I think, on patrol. Yeah,
and they're already, that is
massive.
one of the lowest paid agencies out here, right? Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I know they're hurting.
They're hurting. I think they start at like 23-something an hour is the road deputy, which is really low. So,
my daughter, 15-year-old daughter, makes more than that working at Jitters.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
That's a big ask, man.
Wow.
Because with that, when you're down that many, overtime becomes mandatory. You're getting called out, especially if you're on any specialty teams. And Shoshone was known, kind of before you got there, they had the highest crime rate per capita in the state. And that was in the last 10 years.
Is that because you can go hide in the mountains there? Is that why?
It's a few reasons. So, like, when all the mines were going crazy back in the day and the culture was different in the mining community back then, it was known as that. I mean, it was the Wild West legitimately.
Yeah.
And so all the brothels and stuff were still functional not even that long ago. I mean,
have we confirmed that Wyatt Earp was sheriff of Shoshone County at one point? Because there's rumor about this. I know we talked about it. So you know my buddy Sam. He was working over there as well. He got I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking, but this is a cool story, and I will bring it to light at some point. But he got sidetracked digging through, I think, the courthouse there, maybe in the bottom of the station. I'm not sure, but he said he went into the basement, went through this tiny door into another room, and then like poked a hole through a wall and found this whole stack of old arrest records, like handwritten 1800s arrest records. Wild shit. And he was going through there trying to find something with Wyatt Earp's name on it, like an arrest he had made. So I'm not going to give any spoilers away.
Nice.
But we're going to do a whole podcast on this in the future.
All right, that sounds pretty
Oh,
good.
so you were able to find out if he was?
I don't know.
Interesting.
But, and then Jeff Snell, who's a detective with Kootenai County. He's a retired cop out of California. Good dude. And he's been hot on this as well. So he's going to be the one to come on at some point, and we're going to talk about this and see what they figured out.
See, that's way more interesting than what I was doing now.
No!
When I first found that stack of books and I looked through it, I instantly feel terrible about myself. Because if you want to feel awful about how you write, look at books from the 1800s. You know?
Perfect cursive?
Oh, it's
or what?
perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like that's all they did was just practice.
I mean, imagine the world back then. Like you said, literally the Wild West. Being a cop in that time. Oh my gosh!
Well, there were no hours. It was like show up for your
work
day,
there's no hours.
It's until it's done.
Yeah,
I mean, you just work until it's done, and then you get paid, in chitlings or whatever the hell they were.
Right,
getting paid
and
back
backup. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like there's no radio.
Legitimately, you got paid in deer at one point in Shoshone. And with that, though, they spent an amazing time on their writing, obviously, but the reports were brilliant. They're just like, I came, I saw, I conquered. this dude looked guilty, they're in jail. Like it doesn't even prove a case. It's kind of disconcerting.
Yeah. But also awesome.
But also awesome.
Crime rates were a lot better.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, man, it's a bummer that you left, but speaking from somebody that just transitioned kind of from not that kind of transition.
Whoa. This is Idaho, buddy. Stop.
But, going from one chapter to another, right? Good on you. And it's important to be able to realize when that time is up. And sometimes it's great to be able to leave at your peak, because you guys had a hell of a peak. You guys were all over North Idaho news, smashing it and just crushing over there, where it wasn't a hotbed of crime anymore. People knew that there was going to be accountability. And it's always fascinating to say, it's weird. Accountability tends to translate to crime reduction.
It does. Actually, we, for the first time, so that county's been in the top 5 crime per capita forever, and we actually got it out of there.
That's pretty cool.
Last year was 7, and this year you'll probably see it reduce a little bit more, and then my concern is if staffing stays low, you might see it come back up, but hopefully they can keep it down.
That is so cool to actually make a noticeable difference, right? The entire time I was a cop, I'm in a city in a large state with thousands and thousands of people and cops. I can't say that I ever did anything. You know what I mean? You stem the tide a little bit with the daily stuff, but you can't look at anything and say, yeah, I made a difference here. I changed the stats.
Yeah, go ahead.
I gotta disagree. Actually, I was driving on the way over here and I was thinking, I was like, why do people listen to you guys? And it kind of hit me. I was like, same with when we'll get later on into polarization. I'm like, now as I get older, the first thing I look for is how do you treat other people?
Yeah.
And B, do you still have joy in your lives as you're pushing 40, 45, or whatever it is? And then do you truly care about those around you? And you guys do that in spades. And you came out of a career that was so difficult to keep that going. And just watching you guys day in, day out, I'm a fan.
That's
so
cool. That's
I know
cool.
you made a huge difference
All
out
right.
there.
See, that's cool. And what a blessing to be able to do work with the people that you love, literally like family, right? And enjoy it. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. How many times I say that as a cop? And I'm like, and I was miserable sometimes working graves or whatever. But now I actually say that. I'm like, actually, I freaking love what I do.
Yeah.
And I love the people.
It is a different, because you're kind of in an authority position as a cop, right? There's some that comes along with just being in a uniform. They call it presence for a reason. But then you kind of detach from that and you come out here and you realize you can still impact the community positively. It's just different. It's the same, but it's different. Mm-hmm. And I always say that the people whose First Amendment rights are the most suppressed are uniformed cops. Mm-hmm. We're restricted by policy. So it's just a unique perspective that we can get out and try to just pass some of that on to the community. And I don't want you to think the way I do. I just want you to be informed.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we can give a voice to an underserved class of people that can't.
Yeah.
That have no rights to say that. And it's nice to be able to do that.
It is cool. I say that to lateral cops all the time when they come up here. I said it totally depends on what you're into. They're asking which agency. And it totally depends what you want to do. Our community is still small enough. And even as our population grows, I'm convinced it's a growing city with a small town mentality. It's still small enough. And our value system is still such that you can watch the difference you make. Mm-hmm. You can still make an impact here. Especially if you're one of those cops coming from another area where your skill set may not be adapted here, right? You can use that and you can make it better.
Mm. It's true. It only takes about 6 months here. You nail down a region, particularly if you're coming from outside. You have a certain set of skills, not to sound too much like a take and rerun, but then you can, in 6 months, totally change neighborhoods.
You're right. And then they see it and they're like, oh, okay, that actually does work.
I think it's a huge benefit to have laterals too, because you get that melting pot of skills and techniques. I mean, Cowan came from LA, dude, working Skid Row for 10 years and then comes up here. That dude has more experience than most 30-year cops in small towns.
Right. Well, and he's gone wild with some of the registered sex offender stuff.
Right.
I mean, they've kind of taken off, and Idaho statutes are very conducive to that type of enforcement. It's just not commonly taught.
I love when a guy finds their niche. It turns out my niche was going to training, and I spent most of my entire career just training all the time, which was a great niche for me. But yeah, cool. It's cool to have that.
I like drugs. I like drugs.
It's good.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it was fun.
DUIs were my jam. I loved them.
That was your thing.
That was my thing.
So I know it's tough, man, especially when you go in there and you change the culture like that in Shoshone. How are you doing because you've got your buddies there, right? You've got guys that you trained up. It's hard to leave.
Can we backtrack and talk about what happened there recently? I mean, we had a shift in sheriffs coming in and out. And that was a big factor in all of this, right?
It is, and I'm more than happy to talk about any of that stuff, and I'll try to be straightforward about it. So often, particularly in politics, and you'll see it both sides of the aisle, no matter what happens, somebody done messed up, and then the entire side just goes, whoop, throw you to the wind, we don't know him, that type of thing, right? Yep. With the prior sheriff, Holly Lindsay, who I came in under, she's the one who recruited me over there. I got nothing but good things to say about her.
We had her on the podcast, and I was impressed with her. I thought she was great. So, she made a whoopsie.
She did. She definitely made a mistake, and she took responsibility for that mistake, and then she resigned. And then, so that was kind of the start of it. It does cause some instability, along with whenever budgets are tight, emotions goes high, and everyone started playing the blame game. We were under the budget every year during that administration, which was nice. We were able to stay under what the commissioners provided us. But there was still that push to cut budget further, and so they did. They kind of used that moment. The commissioners were able to appoint a sheriff off of the list that the Democrats gave them for sheriff. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. But speaking of listening to police, the experts in the field, and giving them a voice, which I feel like I'm able to do that now, the Fraternal Order Police Lodge over there, they actually put forth their list, and unfortunately, the commissioners decided to go a different direction. And under that sheriff, he resigned shortly after, and he had a pretty heated term there, along with the shooting that happened at the sheriff's office and many other things. He was definitely trying to go a different direction. That, needless to say, I don't think it quite worked out the way that they thought it was going to.
Did he communicate what that direction was to the boots on ground?
To be frank, no. I'm not sure. So if you're looking at policing direction from the top, right, you're not looking for hey, community policing, go high five some people, right? That's not direction. You're looking for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year plan, and also what exactly you want you guys to do at every level, right? Like, do you want me to focus on proactive? Do you want me to hit 2 drug houses a week? What do you want, right? I think he was having a hard time finding his spot as far as how to properly lead from that position. And in all fairness to him, a lot of things happened quick, which frankly is the norm in that county. Mm-hmm. So we had a flood, which was an declared state of emergency by the commissioners that was taking out a lot of homes and such. And thankfully no one died there. We had the mass shooting. We had the wind storm. But the sheriff's office thing, a lot of people aren't ready for that, right? How many, even amongst the people we know, are ready for that in your office shooter trying to kill as many of you as you can? I mean, that's not typical.
No.
So, right. Yeah. So, and I think when you come into it preaching that you know the answer in politics, you might not be the guy. And the reason I say that is it doesn't matter how good you are, even if you have the right answer, if you can't win the support of those around you and treat your people well, it's probably not going to work out. Plus, any system is far more complicated than people think. Mm-hmm. So when people see some chaos at the top, a lot of people kind of start brewing the corruption claims or these other things, when in reality, I mean, these things happen in every business you've ever been a part of. I mean, they probably happened here, where you guys have gotten an uncomfortable call late at night, now that your business is big enough.
We're in a season right now.
Yeah. We're slaying dragons left and right.
You get that call, and like, this happened, and your best leaders will perform well in that and correct and keep going, but stay steady.
It's easier for the guys and girls on the ground to do that with a new leader when they've seen it. Like, I'll give an example. I don't remember if I called him or if the prosecutor did, but he and I had a funky case to testify, which came back, by the way, favorable for us.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it did.
I did not hear that.
They came back and recognized it.
Really?
So plain smell fentanyl came back from Idaho Supreme Court as a thing.
You will have to send me that, because I've been waiting to hear.
I will. Yeah, they came back and won it. But anyways, we reached out to Seth, totally different jurisdiction, but he came in and testified as an expert. What's funny is the night before, there were lost hikers out in the middle of Shoshone. It was a total mess. So he's out there all night doing that, and then comes in to testify in Kootenai County the next day, smile on his face, ready to testify. Like, trial under fire, right? Like, if your people have seen, you're not asking them to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself. And I just use you as an example. But when you bring in a new sheriff that's untested, unvetted, nobody knows them, and they say they know everything, that's tough. You at least have to know what you don't know. And one thing then, right, wrong, or indifferent, what happened was a human error. But Holly Lindsay, when she was in here, she knew what she didn't know. So she brought on people that knew and covered that gap and said, I don't know enough about this. Can you employ it and fix it? Right? Like that's a difference in leadership style.
It's huge. And she never pointed to her people when things were going wrong, right? So she never just was like, oh, it's their fault, right? And to where this guy came in and literally even put in just a statement of the news saying like, well, it's a mess. It's a good old boy system, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And also talking about getting rid of the backcountry team. Thankfully, later he changed his mind, and he did not do that because he got in there and realized that, well, this is not that.
You have to have that. But praise in public, punish in private. That's
Correct.
been around from the beginning. And
Correct.
even as, I always go back to coaching sports. Hey, if we lost, that's on me. I'm the coach, right? If we won, it's because my players are awesome, right? And that goes so far, just giving them that. So that's too bad, because especially when you get a little bit of momentum, because even in like tumultuous tenure there at the end, he was inheriting a winning team, or at least a growing team, a playoff team, right? You're at least inheriting a team that's going in the right direction.
You could literally roll into that and be like, just don't do anything, right? Just don't do anything. Let it function because it's functioning well. That's the mistake. The most common mistake, that a new commander comes into an office and is like, well, this is going really well. I'm gonna fuck it up.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that.
Why?
That was actually in my board when I went to Shoshone. When they asked me like, what are you gonna do in your first 60 days? Like, oh, pretty much nothing.
Right.
I'm gonna watch,
just sit and listen.
And then I made mistakes and still tried to do something right. But like, that's the thing you should do first is watch.
Yes. Understand the culture of you coming into. Learn the people. Learn all the nuances. And then you can start making subtle changes if you want.
So I take it that's not what happened.
No, it was like a train. It was like a wrecking ball, I should say. Like it was straight Miley Cyrus just coming in.
Yeah, and just freaking came in and started changing everything.
Trying to, and then so when you're given too many changes and too many ideas and flip-flopping ideas, it creates a chaotic environment. So with that, I wish the best for him. I mean, it's a stressful job that he was trying to and being willing to do.
It's like he was set up for failure by the commissioners, right?
I'm trying to do this thing. We're trying to like get rid of the polarization, so I don't want to hit on him too hard. I will say one of the commissioners has been he's been trying to help out the department, Dave Dose, and then I'm hoping the other two are starting to come around with seeing what's happened, because we told them this would happen in the budgetary process, that you're going to lose half your staff, so on and so forth. I think you don't believe it till you see it in a lot of cases. Right. I don't think they believed it.
So it's almost like there's different types of human error.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to learn and grow from them. Maybe have a little bit more grace when somebody has an error.
Right. That's a tough one to come back from, though. Yeah. You lose experienced deputies, and it's like, okay, now you're hiring brand new people, but they're coming into a culture that's not really established yet, and it's chaotic. And I mean, they're setting themselves up for 10 years of trouble.
Yeah.
It's tough in those rural communities because you're already paying low.
Right.
So you have to have a great environment. If you don't have a good environment, like they're never going to catch up with Kootenai County wages. They're not, which is fine. But they do, in my opinion, they should be within 20% and then have a great environment. When you lose that environment and you're already making less, well, now you're not worried about trying out a new environment because you're not giving up anything.
Right.
So,
right. Is there the potential for more money coming to the county with are the mines opening up more? I've been talking to a few people that are looking at moving here because of that. To work in the mines.
So one new mine is coming open, and when you only say one, those mining operations are massive. Yeah. And they bring in a lot of money. I do believe you would need to reach out to one of the commissioners, because they were in talks about, just like when you get, any big business, to where they'll give them like a tax break early on. I don't know what was negotiated there, so they might not see that money for a few years to bring them in. Sometimes those deals are made in big business. I don't know. But there's some other things they could do too. And there's, frankly, if I had, I'm part of a political movement right now trying to talk to some sheriff candidates now. The current undersheriff, great guy, Travis Skinner, he's phenomenal. I think they have a chance to go back in the right direction. It's going to take some years to recover, probably 5 at least if everything's done correctly. But if the new sheriff is willing to work with the Sheriff's Association, we did not talk about this beforehand, but here we go. This is going to be controversial as sin. The Sheriff's Association has a lot of power in Idaho, right? So if I was king for a day, which I'm not running by any means, but what I would do is go to the Sheriff's Association and say, here's my idea. Right now, ISP is trying to get a huge wage increase, and they should.
They should.
I mean, they absolutely should. I'm a fan of it. But they also have a lot more lobbying power than a lot of these sheriff's offices have. If both kind of combined and said, hey, we're going to support your registration, I think it's $9 an hour, I could have that wrong, increase, but you need to support us too and encourage like a local option tax, because that has to go through legislature to approve it. So if they are willing to come play ball, we're willing to come play ball, we're all on the same team, we work together, I think it'd work. I really do, and start those wheels turning. The problem is a lot of times you have 48 counties, 52, yeah, in Idaho. So like everyone's in their own little ballpark, and because it's so chaotic, particularly in rural America, that they're not working together a lot of cases, and you don't have time, is what it feels like. So start getting some of that rolling, and I would like to even see the state police take the lead and reach out to the sheriff's office, sheriff's association, and propose that. I think it'd be huge. There is a little bit of pushback in the legislature right now that I'm sure you guys are aware of, as far as there's some people that are really just kind of, they're saying, why do we need you? Right? And they're elected officials, so hopefully we can show the point and citizens will let them know.
As one that's not encumbered by First Amendment restrictions at all, let me go ahead and answer that theoretical question. And in all honesty, who better to answer it than some of the citizens that have moved here from other states? Why don't you go ask them why you actually need to pay cops here? We're down 80% in Part 1 crimes in Coeur d'Alene right now. Over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, we've increased the population by 35%. Why is that? Because we're proactive. We pay our cops well. Our policies are very encouraging of proactive policing behavior and structure. You adopted it and took it to another place and proved that it worked. So if you're thinking that all of that preventative maintenance doesn't cost, corrective maintenance is a lot more expensive. Anytime, if you're working on your car and you're taking care of everything and you're making sure the oil's changed, that you have transmission fluid, is that cheaper than it is to fix a new transmission or replace the engine in your car? Preventative maintenance costs money, but it's a far less expensive than corrective. Like that to me is just completely nonsensical. Please just drive your ass to Seattle and Portland. Go look and ask yourself. Go to Spokane. You don't have to drive very far. 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
That drives me freaking crazy. Everything's working really, really well. Why do we need to pay you? Right now, criminals are afraid to cross the state line. Right? Go to Coeur d'Alene on vacation, leave on probation, right? We have a reputation in this state. Why the hell would you not want to keep it? And it should be for the whole damn state. We talked about it at Coeur d'Alene. You relocate crime. You make people scared to commit crime. It's hard to commit crime when you're looking over your shoulder all the time. It's not enough to move them out of Coeur d'Alene to Post Falls. It's not enough to move them out of Coeur d'Alene to Rathdrum. I want them out of the damn state.
It's so damn obvious that when people state like that we should reduce pay or get rid of them, whatever, it's like, I got to think they have bad intentions, because you can't be that dumb to think that works.
Yes.
You can't. So I always have to default back to, I mean, that's beyond incompetence. That's just ill intent. And I don't understand it.
Think about living. We get good examples of that every day because we're in real estate. So people move here. I have a really awesome couple that's from Puyallup in Washington. They're about to move here. They're going to close this week.
I cannot say that name.
Puyallup?
My mouth will not form
like
that sound.
Yeah,
it just
doesn't
work.
Dude.
Puyallup.
All right. But they're awesome. But they're getting ready to move out of their house in Puyallup. They won't sell any of their stuff. They won't have anybody over to donate it. They don't want anybody to know that they're moving. They don't want anybody at their house. That's the condition that they actively live in right now, because they know that if anything happened, law enforcement is discouraged from, by policy, they can't do anything. They're too busy documenting what ICE agents are doing. But people that say that have no idea what it's like to live in an environment like that. How much freedom here? You can go take a walk at 11:30 at night here. You don't have to worry about your kids playing out in front. Man, knock that shit off. Truly, you don't know what you're asking for, and all you need is the perspective of people moving here from a place like that.
That definitely helps.
Now you got me all wound up.
I think it passed, but I have to. Someone can confirm this. The new legislation in Washington that gives the state the authority to remove sheriffs from office.
Oh, did it pass? I know it was getting discussed.
I think it may have passed. I think it still needs to go to the governor to sign, but he's going to sign that.
That's going, bro.
Like, it's not going to be good.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's completely insane.
Yeah.
You just removed voters' rights.
Yeah.
No. You dumb voters aren't. informed and intelligent enough to decide who's going to hold the highest law enforcement position here. We know better. All right, you just go back and write us another check.
Even if you make a mistake and you put a sheriff that's not great in there, at least it's on you. It's on your community, and you go, okay, we messed up. Yeah. Maybe we should do something else next time.
Yeah, but in Shoshone's a great example where the community could impact that if they looked at this. Is you still do it at the ballot box.
Right.
Commissioners picked it, and I'm not trying to oust any of the commissioners there, but people are going to look a lot harder at the commissioners. They should. That's the responsibility of their role, right? And again, I'm not trying to encourage that, but if you make a mistake, your voice is actually heard. In Washington now, their voice isn't heard at all.
Yeah,
scary.
I will say there's been some rumors. I don't know if it's gotten any traction, but there's some things in the Idaho side, not similar, but still something that, frankly, my opinion, I don't quite agree with, as far as like the larger sheriffs kind of absorbing smaller rural areas as a financial. And I get what they're saying, right? The financial drain, you absorb it. Well, now you will lose the voice of the rural counties. So like Kootenai County, for example, just to use an example, I'm not saying that's trying to happen here, but now Kootenai County voters would decide the fate of Shoshone, Bonner, Boundary.
I
don't like that.
Is that so would that be like in a situation like this, Shoshone County just can't staff? Now, are you contracting out? Is it like a contracting like Hayden or Dalton Gardens or something? Is that what is that it?
Well, I don't think they're in that much danger in that scenario. But, I mean, to put in point, they had a soft jail close to where they had to ship out a bunch of their inmates, and they just couldn't do it with the staffing they had. But I would say if that scenario ever came into being, I would hope that they push for, hey, even if that's the case, still have an elected sheriff there.
Yeah.
And that person still gets to hold the sheriff duties of this region, because it is kind of the last stand in law enforcement and for the community's civil liberties.
Yep.
And every county's different. You can't expect one entity. That's why we have an electoral college as a country. It's no different. Like King County in Washington shouldn't be able to dictate what happens in Stevens County locally. Independently, they should. It's just like we talk about, how do you influence what's going on in the country? You can't. You look at it and you're like, oh, man, this is such a mess. We control what's going on in our own small area of purview. Try to make our community as best as we possibly can. And then let that, because we always talk about the mind virus, let that positive virus permeate through other communities that are sucking right now. But that's the same thing, man. There's nothing worse than feeling like you're in a position where your voice isn't heard or your vote means nothing.
Right.
So I keep thinking about this, and I need to hash it out in my mind. If Shoshone County hits a point, who steps in? So in California, the CHP would step in, the state would step in and handle law enforcement duties. If in that scenario, would be the same thing here? Would ISP come in and handle that?
So I don't want to put that out there that it's even
no,
close
I'm not
to
saying
that.
It's possible,
because it's
just
not.
I was thinking about it. I'm like, what would happen if a county just couldn't hit staffing levels?
I mean, frankly, in other states, I'm not sure. In Idaho, particularly northern Idaho, I mean, it was just like our shooting, right? Like they had no obligation to come help us, but everyone came.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think there would even be a problem with, I mean, Kootenai County's been our biggest ally. The state, Coeur d'Alene was there the night of the shooting. Marshall showed up. DA showed up. Even for this cleanup work we've been trying to do over the last 3 years, Border Patrol was a huge assist, and not just deporting illegals. Like they were helping with the drug stuff we were doing. And all those different agencies, they would be there in a heartbeat. I mean, this is a brotherhood to where I don't think, as far as legally who's coming to take over, probably the state would try, but they don't have staffing either. So, like, how would you even do that?
Right.
And so, I don't know. But I guarantee you there'd be a lot of people coming just to help.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting.
We're not there yet.
We're not there, and we're not going to be there. I think
the
sheriff race, and just to mention that really quick, our group's going to go public here probably this week. But all three candidates are not bad people. And frankly, it's refreshing to see some decent resumes.
Are they from out of state or local?
One's from out of the region, but he was like born there or something. I'm going to mess that up. He came back. He had a full career out in California.
He's got ties.
He's got ties here, though. Another one was in and out of the policing world, but also is a heavy in the business side. The other one's very local. He's been there for something like 20 years.
Do you like how much does experience matter in this? I mean, is it important to have a guy that's done the job for 20 years and knows it?
Yes, unless you're an incredibly humble people, which these positions kind of attract some egos. Some people want to end their career as a sheriff, right? And that's frustrating.
I also feel like you kind of need to have an ego to be good in that role.
It's an
like you look at Trump,
blend,
right? You look at Trump, like his ego is a little bit too much, but to take on things, I feel like you have to have a bit of an ego.
Right.
It's an interesting blend because you're asking somebody to be the head of what essentially is a servant's heart, right? Like so it's hard. So that comes with a lot of humility, and at the same time, in order to put yourself out there and be able to weather the personal attacks and the storm that you're going to get, you better have a very strong sense of yourself and self-confidence where it doesn't bleed over into ego. And that's why you see some really good ones at the front end still teeter on ego at the end, where they expire, they're past their shelf life, right? You see that all the time. I just think it's the natural human condition where that self-confidence breeds ego. And if it's like that on the front end, I don't see people getting into that position and getting more humble.
Usually not. And that's where I'll say, like, the experience is crucial. If you don't come in with the experience, though, you better be competent and humble.
Yeah.
So it would be the other scenario.
So like a couple years as a reserve deputy somewhere doesn't give you the experience to be. I'm not calling anybody out.
I feel like you're talking about something.
No,
specific.
not at all. Like, not at all.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
Absolutely not.
I think it's a terrible idea across the board, especially if you're coming in hostile and what's the word? Critical.
Yeah, and that's. There's so many applications. Use of force is such a push-button topic in law enforcement and national law enforcement, and you're supposed to be the one to assess that within your agency. How the hell do you know if you've never used it, or you're not you haven't been through that training, you haven't reviewed hundreds and thousands, and you're not on the forefront of modern policing and technology? It's tough. That's a huge ask. I can't see that making any sense with having very minimal law enforcement experience.
And I wonder if we get too far. So I'm actually not a quote-unquote Trump fan, although I am a conservative and Republican, and I did vote for him.
Yep.
And I get I've been called a rhino and whatever else over the hill for that reason, right? Because I will still talk to, I love Democrats. Like, they're amazing people. They're not the enemy. But
see, we're on the same page here, and I know we're going to get into that. And you're preaching to the choir here on that.
But with these sheriffs themselves, when they're running. So for one, you got to be willing to put some of the politics aside occasionally, because, for example, with what's been going on in our office, I asked the 3 candidates, tell me your plan. All right, tell your guys your plan. I invited them to Fraternal Order of Police Forum. 2 of the candidates showed up, and frankly, I'm a big fan of Chris Rice and John Richter in this race. But they were willing to tell the plan, and some things that weren't popular either, right? Because so many politicians, which I'd warn anyone about, if you go and meet somebody trying to get their lay on things, shoot, even set them up for all I care. Have them ask them one question, say, hey, are you going to do this? And if you get most politicians, I think, not to be pessimist, they'll be like, absolutely, I'm going to go do that. But then the next guy, they're going to be like, yeah, no, we're going to do what you want right there. They're just buying votes. So get them publicly to come out with a plan that's set in stone. Say, I'm going to commit to this. I might be wrong. I might get in there and there might be some changes. But the wishy-washy side, I'd like to see get out.
That's why I like podcasts. Because you sitting here for an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting through that. Whatever your original canned 10-minute speech is to go gain as many voters as you can, we're going to get through that. All right? And then there's going to be some real questions, and tell us about your policy. Tell us about your philosophy. Tell us about your values. What grounds your decision-making skills or your decision-making process? Where did that come from? Who are you? Where'd you come? All of that stuff is great. And then you listen to it, and then you get a feel for who they are. So then you can start to gauge, all right, this is what they're going to apply when something big comes up.
Yep.
This measures of values, which I like that part.
Yeah. And you see how they make decisions. I mean, that's half the game, right? Like how, especially up top, I mean, you guys would not be as successful as you are unless you guys were really good at, you do have a good mix of being humble, but also making those decisions in a critical fashion and being okay if 1 or 2 goes wrong. Just die hard on that hill.
It happens.
Well, that's how you know how to make good decisions. Is you screwed up before. I look back at some of my mistakes. I'm like, all right, I learned that one.
Yep.
But that's where it comes back to experience. If you're coming from a different profession and you don't have a ton of law enforcement experience, you better bring something from somewhere that correlates. Tell me about a decision you've made that was critical, right? I know we're going to talk about the shooting, but tell me about something that you've done in another job that equates to anything like that.
Kind of hard to find.
Right? Like that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So and it better be a hard decision too. Like there was a guy who was with overseas that like he should have gotten the award, but I later got an award for this thing where in reality we get hit by a bunch of RPGs, we all get knocked down, and he stands up. He had way more experience than me. He was our platoon sniper, looks over at me, and all he said was, he's like, well, today might be the day we die, but we're going to do this. And I was like, all right. Damn. Okay.
Yeah. All right. He's cool.
I don't really have a choice now. I guess I'm coming with you.
Yeah. Let's do it.
He was a man. And it's those decisions in the hard moments. Anyone can decide, looking at a sheet of paper on a number, to make a decision that is inconsequential, but something where people's livelihoods are on the line, their families, like that matters.
Tense, rapidly evolving. What are you going to do then? Because if you have the benefit of time and distance, because we always talk about that as cops, right? If you have the benefit of time and distance, take it, right? So that you can use the rational part of your brain. But how are you going to respond when things are tense and rapidly evolving? And that's tough to replicate. And if you're going to put somebody in a leadership position amongst other people you're going to ask to make those decisions, it's nice to know that they've had to make those decisions.
Right.
Can you talk about your group, or do you got to wait until that thing's full speed?
I can talk about it right now. We're working on a few things, but essentially what happened is if you've seen this, right? If you're using a bunch of drugs and stuff, you pop up online, decide to say the whole world's corrupt, you guys are all shady, blah, blah, right? I mean, it's kind of going to happen. You don't even think of it twice. When they're elected to certain positions, we shouldn't see that out of our elected officials.
Right.
We just shouldn't.
Right.
And same with if you're a Democrat, hold your Democrat committee accountable. If you're a Republican, hold your Republican committee accountable. Once you're in those roles, and in our case, Republicans have voted for you to represent them, are you representing us? To where I'm a Republican. I was like, are you representing the ideals that I would like to see? Is your character there? Then I'll always look for that first. How are you treating the people around you? Do you instantly just go hammer them, right? Even people who are making mistakes who think differently than you take the higher road. And that's where there was a few of us who we're seeing this trend of everything was awful, the world's ending, Democrats are terrible. I believe I walked into one meeting and they let out what this is the righteous party of God, and said, like, which I'm a Christian myself, but it was so demeaning towards Democrats, and like
it's dangerous.
People thought any way different.
It's dangerous when you invoke that, right? Now it's a holy war. It's not just
it's a holy war. That's
political.
A great way to say
it's
it.
Like, well, there's plenty of Democrats that are Christians as well, and like good people. Like, let's not forget that. But it's very easy to take sides that firmly, and everybody's doing it. Both sides are doing it. And it's toxic, man. It's bad.
It's extremism, man.
It is, and
I don't like extremism in any way, shape, or form. Islamic extremism is dangerous. Christian extremism is dangerous. Political extremism is dangerous.
Like, what people need to realize too is that they're being manipulated, right? It's the news, it's everything is pushing us in this direction, and you got to shut off CNN, you got to shut off Fox News, because they're the problem.
Well, it's just, we talked about this before, man. I used to tell my dad this all the time because he'd get all fired up watching Fox News.
Oh yeah.
I was like, when you watch that, are you pissed off? He goes, yeah, it was this and this and this. I said, if you're pissed off, consider yourself entertained, but stop pretending like that's the news.
Yeah.
They're not there to deliver information and help you make your own choice. They're there to piss you off, and you'll keep coming back, because the way the human brain works, no different than dope.
Dude.
You're going to get a dopamine release from that. It's going to get you all fired up and pissed off, but if it is intended, watch it. It's intended to piss you off. So it's no longer the news, it's entertainment. And I say Fox because my dad was very conservative, but it's the same damn. MSNBC's worse. You know, CNN is terrible. It's hard to go get unvetted, emotionally driven, plain news so you can make your own choice.
Most people don't even know where to find it. I barely even try anymore, because I'm like, well, things that happen in Washington, D.C. really don't generally affect my life here. what affects my life here is local politics for sure.
Right.
And that is something that we can influence living here in the county. That's good. But
oh yeah, we got our Idaho Court Watch up and running. We got our 501c3 and LLC. So that is
going to be so freaking cool.
Yeah, that's going to go live.
A lot of people are excited about that.
Did you guys C3 or just C designation?
I think C3. I think we 501c3'd it.
Really?
Yeah. Jordan did it.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah, so all that's done and up, and we're just looking like, and that'll be something we put out to the public later. But we'll need a little bit for startup, just so we can gather all the data. But we already got our website going. But that way, people can just again what we're talking about: be informed politically.
It
That's
is.
it. So when you go vote and you see the judge's name, you don't know. It'd be great if there was just an app you could say, all right, where do they rank? Here's the median and all raw data. We'll show you exactly where we got it all. We just want you to be informed,
Unbiased, unpolitical. That is the goal. And it's going to be hard for us to keep our opinions to ourselves. I'm sure we'll fail sometimes, but that is the goal. Just put information out that everybody can digest and make informed decisions, no matter what side of the political spectrum you are on. I'm super excited about it.
I love that, and not to just a plug, but Destry and Ben Allen are running for district judge here this coming election. I'm a big fan of both of theirs. I've had more experience with Ben. I've loved what Destry's done too, but Ben, that was kind of I worked a lot with him over in Shoshone, and I go in his office and we hash something out. And what I loved about him the most, back to the being able to keep your emotions out of it, I've watched him with difficult people who hated him respond each time with subtleties, and he made a fair decision to the best he could. He'll be the first to tell you he's not perfect, and sure as hell has made some mistakes. But his poise is incredible, to the point where it's frustrating my first year. I actually, when I was leaving, I told him that. I was like, man, I did not know what to do with you the first year, because he was a prosecutor at the time. I was like, just because I came in there for opinion, man. I needed an opinion to go out. I'm task oriented. I'm a cop. My unit needs to do these things. And he's phenomenal. He's absolutely amazing.
That is good to hear. He looks young too. I haven't met him.
He's
in
pretty
person.
young.
Yeah,
he's only
fantastic.
Late 30s.
Oh, perfect. So,
For a judge, that's young.
I had a lot more experience with Destry Randall's, and I'm a fan also. I mean, you've heard me mention that name. There's a couple of them over there that I'm just I've had a lot of experience with them in court. I've had experience with them outside of court. Fair, impartial, unbiased, and that doesn't mean every decision went my way, right? But the articulation that went along with it, and I think he applies the same logic pattern to different cases.
It's consistency. That is what is needed. Yes. When you have judges or any politician that is, they're allowing their emotions to get involved in it, right? Which is easy to do. I get it. I absolutely get it. I don't have to live like that, so I can allow my emotions to get involved.
Yeah.
But if you're in that position, I feel like you should be able to do that. And I mean, it's like pure stoicism right there. Man.
Yeah.
It's rock solid.
But you hit it earlier, man. When it comes to sheriffs and judges, I don't see it as R's and D's. I honestly get annoyed that they almost have to declare it.
Right.
Because you're speaking for your entire population. There are some positions and some things that should transcend politics and your opinions on certain things that have become crazy political, right? Your job is to represent everybody. And if you're the sheriff, it's to impart the rules and governing statutes of the state of Idaho, as best as you can, right? Look out for your community. And that's where I get frustrated. It gets overly political, where nobody's going to get elected unless they have an R in front of it. And look, Idaho is way better off than most other states. I would contend all the other states, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't look at things objectively and realize we can still have civil discourse. It doesn't have to be the crazy extreme zealotry where it's I hate you because you think this way.
Right, and I hate when they have to be endorsed by a political group up here to get elected, and that's the only way. And it's like, well, they shouldn't be the gatekeepers. So that's frustrating. And that
they're human too.
Right. And that is something where I think podcasts are extremely beneficial, because it can, like Randy Westland came on our podcast, and I think that gave him a big boost and let people understand who he is. And, I'd love to see a world where you don't have to have that endorsement and you can just be yourself.
You mentioned it perfectly. Like, don't let this become a holy war. And back to why we formed this group, that was exactly why. So, like, anytime a small group that is elected by your party, they get to form a vetting committee, and so that's what happens. So you have a very small amount of voices vetting all candidates. So don't be afraid to get out there and meet other people who run and say, what do you believe? And if they're this group, their only defense is, well, they weren't vetted by us. I don't understand. That's what happened. Multiple members came out online and were like, well, I don't understand why we need a second Republican group out here. I was like, well, because there's a lot of voices to be had. They're going to go out there and pitch the best they can, and they have the right to do so. And if they get elected, we're going to respect that of the voter. So that's what we're trying to do, and get a voice that properly represents the Republicans.
Well, do you have a name for this group? Or is it releasable?
So it's good. We're dabbling with a couple names, but more than likely it's going to be Shoshone First Republicans.
Cool.
And that's not to say we don't care about everything else, but it has more to do with the fact that I think all local citizens should do that first, right? Like Kootenai County citizens should say, what makes my roads run well? That it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. What's the tax assessor's office? How do they run it? Go get educated on those things and then vote accordingly. The judges, like you guys are trying to do, is admirable. Those things affect your life in the day-to-day and how your community runs. If you're getting holes, as stupid as this sounds, as boring as it sounds, it's not clickbaity. It has nothing to do with transgenders. But you care if your roads are decent, right? Like that's something you care about. You care if the fire department shows up. You care if EMS is halfway decent. You care if your hospital is run. You care if business is being encouraged to move here. That's all local. So when that name comes from is not it's not a spinoff of like the America First thing. That's not what it's trying to be. It's just saying that let's come back to the basics where like these are your neighbors. Why on earth are you attacking your neighbors and saying, all the classic insults. Like if I see online that the first comment of a Republican committeeman is, well, damn you and your liberal tears, I don't have a high regard for you.
Right.
That is a conversation to be had in private over whiskey, and talk like that with your friends. But yeah, right. out in public as an elected official, like that's ridiculous, to be honest.
Well, and I do think and there will be a common theme to this, but the way forward is within our own small communities. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people get caught up in the national noise where it's like, you don't have to worry about trans dudes going into girls' restrooms in Kellogg, right? Like that, right. But that's what it becomes about. Mm-hmm. But what it is, and I've long said, Washington's always my example because I love to trash them because they're just tanking themselves. But their tax rate is increasingly brutal and their crime rate keeps going up. People would be willing to pay higher taxes. It goes back to some wages. If they go out there and the roads are good and your schools are good and you're not going to get your shit stolen out of your car, right? Like if it's safe and your schools and you can walk down your street at night and it's clean and there's not a big pile of human shit in front of your business door, like, man, people will pay a little bit more, right? Like, because that's a safe environment. But in our country, it's flip-flopped. You pay taxes higher in places where all of those things are a problem.
Correct.
Right? So I going back to fundamentals and basics and what actually affects our community. Where can we steer this energy?
And those things shouldn't be political. Like we can all agree we should be healthier as a country.
Yes.
The healthcare system's jacked. The food system's jacked. Like we should all be able to agree on that. But unfortunately, a lot of people out there are like, well, Trump said I shouldn't take Tylenol, so I'm going to take fucking extra Tylenol. I'm like, that's dumb. Like, come on.
That actually happened.
It did happen. And I'm like, that's dumb.
It's or representation.
Yeah. Or, RFK, man. I mean, yeah, we should probably look into vaccines because autism rates in California are like 1 in 20, and in 1970s it was like 1 in 10,000. I'm like, something's going on.
Yes, and probably
maybe we should look into it and not politicize it.
Absolutely.
That should be a whole country thing, and that comes back to civil discourse and bringing people to the table.
Right.
That's where I don't like the immediate FUs. Right. I get some of the frustration, especially with my own family, because they're pre-programmed just to come at you with screaming and emotion. It's like, can we just get through that for a sec?
I have lived that.
Yeah, but let's just get through it and actually hash this out. Like, what is important to you? Because I'll bet we're not that far apart.
Exactly.
We disagree on how to get there, and I'd love to give you my perspective, either like time in other countries in the military or my time on the street as a cop. I'd just love to impart upon you my perspective, and I'd love to hear yours.
And that's why I reached out to some of the Democratic committee members, because I said that. I was like, there's going to be some things I don't agree with on that platform. But what are the lists that we can all agree on? It's same with if you look at your legislatures down south. Perfect. What are they working on? If it is some new transgender bill, okay, I happen to not be for that lifestyle at all. However, if there's 5 other things I deem as more important, I would expect you to be working on those things. because there's way more to work on, and what are we spending all our time on? And you'll see these clickbait bills coming out, and it keeps them elected.
It's clickbait crap,
right?
And it's
that's what's popular. It's no different than having a viral Instagram video. You're like, oh, what's popular right now? What's trending? Right. And then you're going to go push that instead of saying, hey, you know what actually makes sense here? We need to keep paying our cops so we can stay proactive. Here's the things all of that stuff.
Okay, I'm going to use an example, and you know what? I'm just going to say it, and people can get mad at me or whatever. But for example, in Post Falls, the mayor of Post Falls really wanted to do a push for having ICE come in and make Post Falls known for that. And I'm like, dude, it's not really a problem up here. Focus that attention on something else that is a problem. Like if you go after fentanyl and make Post Falls like the spot for hooking people for dope, like that is an actual issue. That's not clickbaity. Right. So I was like, I had a difference of agreement or different of opinion with him on that one. I was like, it's like,
but go ask your cops.
Yeah,
what's the problem?
Yes, but that was kind of the national clickbaity thing. But that's the type of person that will have that conversation with you.
Yes,
you could have the civil discourse because
I appreciate they did have the conversation. Yes,
Post Falls downtown corridor. There's no reason that beautiful location should not be every bit as popular as downtown Coeur d'Alene. The problem is the neighborhood that's to the east of Spokane Street, that's south of I-90, is rough. Like that one's just got a little bit of a hotbed. So that's another one, but that's the type of individual that would go gain perspective from people that are out there and on the street and go, oh, okay, that will actually, that's where you see those 6-month changes. You're like, hey, give me 6 months. Let me go ride this a little bit and see what we can do.
Right.
Well, we got, can you talk about the shooting?
We better because we promised we would.
Yeah. No, I absolutely can talk about the shooting. So, thankfully, I was still there, but I knew I was accepting a job elsewhere. So I was actually on a couple weeks of vacation at the time. So I was actually mid-lift in the gym, America.
Dude, you had a pump on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate that.
Right, so my tempo was correct, right?
Yeah.
And thankfully, actually, so I'll start in the middle almost, is dispatch essentially had to evacuate. So they were no longer able to have comms for a little while to get out to all the people that we need help, right? So I actually got a call from an ex-employee who heard it on the radio, thank God, and she hit me up and was like, what's going on? She's like, someone's shooting up the office right now. And I was like, you kidding? Okay, all right. And I roll out of the gym and I hit up the Kootenai SWAT guys instantaneously. I was like, I need your help because I have no idea what's happening. And they've been amazing ever since I've been there and before, to where they started rolling. Coeur d'Alene started rolling. I think even Post Falls guys started rolling. The whole region was coming as ISP was coming. But as this happened, so essentially this suspect showed up, which there's lots of lessons to be learned from, frankly, citizens and cops for this. It was right in the middle of the budget crisis. The new sheriff that was appointed was there, and we had a discussion, and it was reduced staffing on certain days. So there's actually only one county deputy vehicle on the road that day for the 8th largest county in Idaho.
Wow. And
then a trainee was with her. So two-man unit, but one vehicle. So they had gotten called out a ways out of the region. So they weren't close. So this guy parks across the street from the courthouse. He's an unassuming guy, but he was strapped to the hilt, put 4 guns on himself. One was a 7.62 rifle, a semi-automatic. One was a shotgun and 2 pistols. I will avoid some details for the sake of, I think the shooting's still being investigated. But he literally strolled right in. Walked up the sidewalk. People saw him. You can see in the cameras, people just kind of giving the 1-2, like, what's he doing, And we as cops can get complacent when we talk about it, but even citizens, we get used to being so safe that it's very obvious that this is wrong. And not to call out the citizen, just a learning thing of you see something off, maybe just assume it's off, right? So he strolls into the office. We have 2 panel doors. He walks through the first one, and then he shoots the second one out to gain entry. I'm going to mix some of this stuff up a little bit. It's been a little bit since I saw the video. But he comes in, stashes some guns around. He comes back out, starts shooting at comes in when the gunshot's fired, and we have no deputies armed in the building because we're so short-staffed at the time. And so dispatch is it's hard to explain our office, but they have bulletproof glass protecting them from the lobby, but he's in the lobby and walks over, and our jail deputies heard this, came out, and frankly, the door caught his attention, so he went off a little bit, but they had closed the door back again. One of the deputies, and this is something that hasn't been out there yet, like I like to focus on the wins. Kudos to this guy. They come out, they swing the dispatchers back into the jail to protect him. They pull him back into the jail since there's no way to get in there really. And the one deputy decides, I have a gun locked up, as jail deputies do, as you guys know, so I'm going to go for it. So he runs down the hallway. Well, it's in view of the window that the shooter can see. So the shooter actually turns, I believe it's a shotgun, shoots through, trying to breach the door. And he's almost successful. He's off by maybe an inch and a half. Tries to breach the door to gain access to go after my deputy. And the wood chunks go flying past him. Debris hits right around him to where he thought he was taking rounds, but he thought it was a bullet that just flew by. It was actually wood chunks. So he retreated. He wasn't able to get his gun, retreated further into the building. Thankfully at this time, I can't assume anything, but regardless, he distracted, we'll call it distracted for lack of a better term, comes back out of the street and starts shooting at civilians indiscriminately. And shooting across the street. There's a storefront that took a lot of rounds. There was a lot of rounds fired in this thing. And then he ends up shooting 2 women on the sidewalk. I won't say anything about they lived, but shot 2 women. And then talk about another heroic moment. A civilian, a guy saw this happen, hustles them into his truck under fire. And if you guys see this car, like, it's straight out of Afghanistan. Like, I mean, rounds through the windshield. There's blood all over his back seat. Like, kudos to him. I mean, he saved lives. He saved lives. Mm-hmm. I don't believe he was armed, but if he was armed, he didn't fire back. He was helping the women into the vehicle.
Triage, man.
Yeah, and took off to the hospital. And who knows what would have happened if he had not done that. So that was incredible that a civilian would do that, and that's not really out there in the news even as far as I'm aware. So that came to light a little later. At that point, he kind of wanders around. Due to the extended time and we had nobody there, it was 8 minutes. So for people in more populated areas, you'll never see that in this region, right? 8 minutes without an armed cop.
Time.
That's a long time to do whatever you're going to do. So there was quite a lot of rounds fired in this time frame. Thankfully, a Kellogg officer who was actually used to be a deputy of ours, he started coming on the freeway. The guy heard the siren, so is what it appears on the video. He comes back out to the front, and the Kellogg officer had no idea what he was getting. I mean, he knew he was an active shooter, but I should probably ask him. But, I mean, you can kind of assume he did not assume he was going to park in front or off to the side, but park out front, instantly start taking rounds from a rifle. And it was instantaneous. And I got nothing. I mean, that was the third, what I would call, heroic moment of this event by local officers or staff, to where it's some of the best gun work I've seen. And my understanding is that's the first gunfight he's ever been in. It was phenomenal. I mean, the man operated with complete disregard of his own safety. He even was firing with a handgun, reached in his pocket, popped the trunk, just like we're all trained, but no one does it. Who all stays with their handgun, comes back to the truck, gets the rifle. And then at that point, he retreats further into the sheriff's office, shoots out through the windows. And then everyone kind of gets hunkered down. So at that point, it becomes, it changes. So now we started getting, as I'm coming to, we got him on video, thankfully, on cell phones. And he decided to retreat back in and become a
barricade.
Thank you, barricaded suspect. So that changes things for us. So up to that point,
time and distance.
Yeah, for those people who don't know, if you have an active shooter, you have victims or innocents around, you're going in no matter what, right? You're just going to assault the target. Once it becomes a barricaded suspect in police theory, through the majority of the U.S. now, then it changes. Now you're going to implement your perimeter and then call for SWAT, right?
And TOA standards,
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a standard in law enforcement today. So then the situation somewhat changed. And by that point, a couple Kellogg officers a Pinehurst guy, and that appointed sheriff had made it to the scene. They came up through the building, through the back, and this was not a fault of their own, purely a 30 years lost in translation. They thought they were going into an area surrounded by bulletproof glass, which dispatch should have been. I was under the understanding it was, but it wasn't. So it was, one side was bulletproof glass, the one to the lobby, but when you get back an attorney-client visiting, it actually wasn't.
Jesus.
So, and no one knew. I mean, we had 20-some-year guys there, all under the perception that this was bulletproof glass. So it was just sheer happenstance, unfortunate. But Drake, who's the suspect, ends up shooting through it. Almost, I mean, it's close. The video is harrowing to one of the Kellogg Kellogg officers, Damian Groves, and that bullet went within inches. So glass cut the side of his head. It's quite the video to watch. Like he was an inch or two away.
Close, yeah.
So at that point they retreated. They retreated back in the building, held the stairwell, and then it kind of held. So then I was able to show up. If you ever want to see a Ford Maverick go 120 miles an hour, terrifying.
Yeah. Going back in time.
That was scary as shit.
Mm-hmm. But not as scary as not getting there.
I'm in my civilian rig, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And it wasn't the best of weather either. So, but anyways, I get there, and so at that point, how incident command works, I take over incident command, and then we re-fortify the perimeter. We got a sharpshooter up top on a building across the street. And
what department was he from?
The sharpshooter?
Yeah.
That was the same guy who, well, when I say sharpshooter, sorry, that's a lot of slang from my military days.
Okay. You got a guy with a rifle.
Guy with a rifle up top, yeah. So it was the same guy who'd engaged initially.
Yeah.
So at that point, surround the building. Then we started trying to get the inmates out. That is a cluster. That's new to me, coming from the state police side, and never had to worry about that before in that type of instance, but we're actually filling them out the back. I mean, we had inmates stashed in police cars around Wallace. Talk about a surreal thing that you're like, can't really get trained for this super well, but here we are.
Yeah. If we need to evacuate the people we have in custody for their safety, that's pretty wild.
We have a guy in the jail in a hallway. I think he was a jail sergeant at the time. He's now a lieutenant. Good dude, but he was making sure somehow he breached it. They were good there for the rest of the inmates. But thankfully, we were able to get SWAT spun up, and they got there with a Bearcat. And they were hauling too. Like I said, the Brett from county showed up to help his team. I transferred
and Brett's always there.
He's a good dude.
He is a solid dude.
So transferred the tactical control to them, and then soon after they were able to start aggressing with the Bearcat, and then he actually came out, and then that effectively ended the situation. I'll just leave it there. But
is he deceased?
He's deceased. Yeah, the shooter's deceased, and thank God no one else died.
It sounds like plenty of opportunity.
Yeah,
it was sheer act of God that no one else died. Like
wow.
It could have gone terribly. I mean, that's hopefully the only one in my career where I have actually a shadow box now with some of the bullets that ended up in my office wall because it punched through 3 walls into my office.
Wow.
So it's
wild.
It's an interesting scene. I mean, it looked like some of those buildings overseas at the end. I mean, glass shattered everywhere. Sheetrock sprays so badly that it creates quite the scene. But another thing I kind of want to focus on is, so most in the world where like it's a shooting here, me and my wife were at Texas Roadhouse last night. It was like shooting in Spokane, blah, blah. And, she gets a little down and she's like, of course it's another shooting. I'm like, yeah, it is. But if we can start refocusing on some of the things that, like, for example, this instant, so many things went right that should reinforce how well our society is now, particularly policing. So many things went right. And there's a lot of heroic moments, and then not many people focus on the aftermath either. Usually we just look at it and go, man, my community's falling apart, or these other things. But for those who drift that direction, I would highly recommend a book. It's called The Rational Optimist. It's amazing. It's literally this guy who he just looks at a historical fact pattern of how things have gotten so much better over the past few hundred years. And that includes violence. It's an amazing book. Highly recommend it. But the people even after are forgotten quickly. Like, we have dispatchers who could have responded differently, could have broken down, whatever, who came in, cleaned up blood, glass. I mean, me and the commissioner, Dave Dose, the chief, and others, some of our own staff, were literally cleaning blood off the carpets, cutting carpet out, brain matter, until wee hours of the morning. I mean, this is long after the scene's done, the investigation's done, and the whole crew just came together and said, we're doing this right now. We're going to make this to where we can work in it. We're going to keep going and keep providing the service that's a necessity. That should be the story, right? That should be the story. And that and the heroic things people did. I don't want to bring light to the shooter. I mean, there's that whole argument. But those are the things, like 9/11, everyone's best friends after, right? Mm-hmm. That's where it should go to, even in our worst moments. Yeah, that's the shooting event.
It goes back to, and I know you want to bring up polarization, but it goes back to that, right? Mm-hmm. Where our methods of communication as a society have changed. Mm-hmm. And I agree with men, because I signed the dotted line on September 6th to join the military, and 5 days later, September 11th, right? So my whole perspective changed. Like the whole concept of me joining the military changed. But people's communication then was far more face-to-face. Mm-hmm. You could trust the news a little bit better, but that's where most people got their stuff. But in your little sphere of influence, that's where your communication came from. Mm-hmm. And, man, it seemed more optimistic then. Now, where everything's online, it just becomes about who can yell the loudest, this vitriol and acidic hate, and it just permeates. And I think you're right, because you said it before the podcast. The over 50 generation, maybe retired and not working anymore, they seem to fall more victim to it because they read it and then believe that they have all the information. So
yeah, they didn't grow up, like my kids now, like they can spot AI things, right? It's a perfect example of that. Like they're a little bit better at spotting some of these fallacies out there. I think that generation came up trusting, the news source because it was more trustworthy back then. So they still, like my parents, right? They firmly believe that, what's that? Not PBS. What's that other public one? No. It's not really public though.
Not MSNBC.
No, it's that doesn't matter. It's one of those that used to be trustworthy, right? And it was like,
CNN.
No, although they do trust that as well, even though I've told them many times. But it's like they grew up that way and they haven't realized that it has shifted, and now the information is tainted. And I don't know how you get through to that generation in that regard.
So, what did it become more about in your community?
As far as
like the response to that shooting, because you said it should have been about how everybody collectively ponied up and went back to it and back to protecting the community.
I think it was inconvenient for a few political elements because obviously that sways support back to the sheriff's office in some ways. But it should have been just, particularly in the public entities, which is something our administration had been trying to push for, is like, I don't care if you disagree. You just speak well of the people willing to come and serve the community in every capacity. And that's not just in law enforcement. We get really focused on law enforcement, but I'm like, teachers generally go hand in hand with law enforcement, ironically, and they're experiencing some of the same issues.
Nurses, right?
Nurses.
Always,
Thankfully in Kootenai, they're doing pretty all right. My wife's a nurse. But
cops and nurses,
perpetuating the stereotype.
Yeah, I know.
Both of you.
Me too, buddy.
Stereotype and a half. A walking stereotype. But with the same with the tax assessor's office, the clerks, like, just, speak well of these department heads who, particularly in our area, they're very underpaid. The whole group is underpaid. Speak well of them, right? So the response to the shooting was not what I would have liked. There was actually a lot of pressure to open up the sheriff's office immediately. A lot of pressure, which to the point one commissioner even came over and said, well, you just got to treat this like an event. And I'm like, this isn't the time. Our civilian staff happened to not be there. It was a Friday. Most Fridays they're there.
Thank goodness.
Our civilian staff would have been the first one shot. We had two. We have the driver's license. We have one of our front administrators. If they were there, I'm confident they wouldn't be alive.
Which is traumatic even for them to think that,
correct,
right? Even though they weren't there to witness it. They still came in, I'm sure, at some point and see bullet holes where they sit, and it's like, oh, that gets you thinking. And they're not necessarily, cops deal with that pretty regularly, that thought, right? It's not everybody does, and that's hard. So to push them to open, I don't know, even dispatchers, right? They deal with it on the radio, and they're awesome. But when it's face-to-face, like, there's trauma there.
I'm going to try to think about this like a politician, all right? I'm going to look back at this. So I'm sitting there, thinking, all right, so because we underfunded the hell out of the county, there were hardly any employees there on what would be considered a standard workday. So because they underfunded the county, they saved lives that day.
That is politician logic.
That's there you go. So really, when I write this out and talk about my accomplishment, I save lives.
Frankly, it could have been done much better. And the ultimate decision maker there was not the commissioners. So I don't want to put that out there. As far as that day,
right?
I got to give my little chunk so I don't get sued. But
yeah. No, I get it.
100%.
But
what's next for you?
It's next for me. So I got offered a gig at another department here local in Kootenai.
Cool.
So I'm excited about it. I think they
going back to patrol
for a little bit. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I had this discussion with my wife, going like, I could either do one of two things. I could run, or I'm still young, right? I'm still young. I love what I do. I love this region, and case in point, I mean, you've done this type of work forever. I find drug work to be rewarding because it attaches to everything. It attaches to sex crimes. I've done a ton of sex crime work and the dope side. And that, in turn, takes down your property crime, which a lot of people care about, which I do too. But, like, really the amount of pain that comes from that world is extreme. And
especially the kids, man.
Especially the kids. Yeah, we seized a ton of kids out of Shoshone. I mean, a ton of them. In one house, there was like
Let's
6
use
or
the
7.
word saved because
Saved.
sounds bad.
Yeah.
Saved.
I know what you mean, but
Yeah.
For those that don't, saved.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Saved is better.
Yeah.
Out of terrible situations where, I mean, fentanyl dealers, sex offenders, all living in the same homes.
The
and
normal
such.
public, I think of my parents, for example, like they have never seen that. And they don't quite understand it. So it's important to hear perspectives from cops of like when you go into a house and there's literally shit all over the floor and cockroaches and like little babies are running around with diapers that are full and nobody cares.
That's it. You just threw a quarter in the jukebox, bro. This is where I get so frustrated
I know how
that
to get
freaking that profession is the most restricted from speaking publicly. I would love to just be able to impart that perspective, and I do it any opportunity that I can just to provide some of that. Because I've got a couple of stories where you're like, damn, where you actually get some firsthand account of what that looked like and what you see and what these kids go through.
Smell.
Right, and all of those things, right? But cops aren't allowed to speak publicly based on departmental policy that come from national standards, but that's BS. Who better? And it's funny, we have a great example of it here locally, Live PD. They used to have Live PD in Spokane County. Spokane County was one of the most entertaining on Live PD. Council members there are like,
we don't like that.
Yeah, it makes Spokane County look like shit. Oh, I would call that an accurate account of what you've let it turned into. Thank you, policies. But I just wish cops could speak freely more often. And obviously you have to be calculated, and we have some that would go over the top, right? But it would benefit all of society if they could just give them some perspective on what's actually happening.
Yeah.
I think it might realign their priorities from what CNN's telling them their priorities are. Then you look at it and go, oh, okay, maybe that is something that we focus on. It was just like when fentanyl legislation was going through and didn't pass the first time. Yeah. It's like, oh, just give me 10 minutes in front of those people.
Right. Come on a ride along.
Yes.
Let me show you something.
That's where I'm excited about this agency, because I picked it for a reason. I shopped around first. We've been in this field long enough, right? You know somebody at almost every agency in the entire region.
Yep.
To where, I had a couple of choices, but the one I picked, I actually only applied to the one for this reason. And even upon getting there, they've been phenomenal. They really incorporate the vision of the town, the vision of the region, where they want to go with it. They want to take care of you at the same time. They put that into your first week orientation, which they do it the best I've seen. Some other agencies are trying to adopt that method, but this is the best I've seen so far.
That's encouraging.
They're doing just a great job. Yeah. So the whole, it's a younger group overall, but I think it's going to be great, and particularly where the town's going. I'm excited to try to help the town expand while doing my part to keep the crime out. So
I can't wait to
see. I think that's their vision.
Well, you know where we're at, man. Let us know how we can assist. Like I said, if we got to be that voice for a while, I'll gladly do that.
Yeah, I'd love to have you come back on in the future as things are, 6 months from now, and give us an update on how that's going, and then we can tell where it is.
Yeah, and I got to figure like some of those circumstances. If this was like free agency in football, you were a pretty hot commodity in free agency. So Post Falls is like, all right, or sorry, X that, Bob, X that. So your agency. I didn't do it the whole time, but
CIA,
the agency would look at it and say, yeah, all right, we're gonna do what it takes to bring him in. That's cool.
Yeah,
but a lot of big changes overall in our landscape. I mean. Post Falls police chief, Coeur d'Alene police chief. I mean, I don't know if the sheriff's going to run again, but there's there's a lot of potential change and there's a lot of movement around it a lot. And I just still go back to we are better when all of them are in communication with each other, when we're tight. And what's funny is boots on ground, we've never had an issue. Like there would be admin fights between ISP and PD when I was there, but you and I never had any. No, we just ignore all that.
It is the dumbest shit ever. When that happens, it's like, freaking come on, man.
Yeah.
I used to have that in the town I worked in. It was like the old school chippies, the old dudes didn't like the PD or the SO. And I'm like that's your backup, dude. Like, don't be freaking dumb. So we changed that culture there. But it's like, why?
Yeah,
we're on the freaking same team.
That's a big reason why I picked the agency I did, because the head of this one, I've never heard him say a bad word about any other head of agency.
That's perfect.
Right? Yeah. Or the admin, because it's easy. I mean, some guys are going to come with the next complaint about whoever, and he just goes, oh, all right.
Well, he just seems to get over any of that nonsense pretty fast and keeps his eye on what's important. So, because that question came up, said if you're looking for one that'll be able to collaborate with outside agencies and looks to do that, man, he's pretty good in that regard.
Yeah. It's easy. Yeah, don't judge from 1,000 feet away. Just say, no, we got our own problems too.
You think we can get him on here sometime?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm going to ask him.
Put the bug in his ear.
That's going to be up to him, but I'm going to ask him. I will say, quick back to the drug plug, because I just remembered something, because I don't think we've talked about this before. Maybe you've already talked about it. Have you guys talked about Kratom?
No.
Not on the podcast.
No. I am on a Kratom tear.
What do you got?
Not using it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
3 days in, bro.
Right before the podcast.
Yeah. So I was trying to pump out a lot of informational stuff in my county, trying to get it out.
Do they sell that at gas stations?
So that's the crazy part. So all you got to do is go to other regions. A lot of regions don't even have age requirements or very low age requirements. But this stuff is by far not safe. Like, it's not safe at all. In fact, it's wild, because what they're seeing people go to rehab centers and you get it unlimited, legal off the shelf. And there's the new stuff coming out, just like they did with weed, where they, was it 07? I believe is what it is, 07. I didn't do my research for that first before this. This just came to mind.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's just as addictive. You have a Jamie. Can you look it up?
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, I want to say 25 to 50 times more potent than morphine.
Kratom? Get out
of here. The new 07. Yeah, so we're seeing drugged out people coming into gas stations to get their 07 and to get back in there. We did some raids at the end there. We did one particular one on a guy that was selling guns that he wasn't supposed to. He was a felon. And we found, they weren't all full, of course, but like 50-kilo bags of this. Bags of this stuff, of the powder stuff. Most was used, but there was still, like, let's say 5-10 kilos that weren't.
Oh boy.
And in no other drugs. That's the crazy part, just how times are changing, to where I'm like, why? Right? He couldn't have been using all of it. There's no way. 50 keys.
No, he's distributing.
So, but it's also legal. So I'm not quite sure the game there, but I will say it's destroying families. And the other thing that I think is important to get out on the Kratom issue, it targets the new age movement. So the new age movement of, like, I like everything natural, I want to do this to fix my anxiety. That's what it's marketed as.
Oh boy.
And it works. It's awful.
Yeah.
But it works for an extended period of time. 5 to 23 times more strength than morphine, correct? Or it just says more strength.
That's freaking wild. It reminds me
of, I had no idea.
It reminds me of spice. I don't know. I mean, why isn't it regulated or scheduled, either in the state or at a national level?
Yeah, I can clearly remember driving by. I feel like all the time I drive by gas stations and I see Kratom. I'm like, I never really thought about it. I remember hearing about it when I was a cop, and I'm like, whatever. It can't be that bad. They sell it at a gas station, right?
And they're making a ton of money. And then on top of that, so you need the same opioid receptor block that you get for heroin to get off the stuff in a lot of cases at these rehab centers. It's that serious. And another thing that's interesting, I'm going to mix this up. When you start taking Kratom I believe it acts as a stimulant at the start, and then it becomes acting like heroin. So it actually swaps. So the more you take, you'll actually have a swapped effect. I can't remember if it's a heroin type effect first to get rid of the...
Well, that's like me and coffee, bro. Like, by the time I drink my afternoon coffee, it's like heroin for me. So.
That's exactly it.
I get it. I could see that.
It's a wild thing.
Freaking wild. But, I mean, think about the way other...
10 to 13 times more than morphine.
Yeah.
Wow,
and it's sold on the shelf.
Yeah, but think about how a lot of drugs came up. Like even when we started talking about oxys and Percocets, when those first hit the market, they categorized them as non-addictive. That's why the opiate settlement funds happened the way that they did.
Right.
So they're talking about this medicinal use of kratom without having any actual, I don't want to say laboratory findings, but without having a system in place in order to test it. Then we become the guinea pigs.
You know what we need to do is we need to have Trump go on the air and say that it's good, and everybody should use it. And everybody will stop using it.
That is actually pretty accurate.
Fun fact: a lot of the Asian companies or countries that actually produce it made it illegal in their own countries.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
That says everything.
It's just like big food.
Yeah.
They don't spray the same stuff. It's illegal in Europe, but we spray it on our crops.
Right.
Here.
Right.
That don't even get me. That's my coin.
So I know.
That's the one that'll piss me off.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
freaking wild.
I was just in Australia, and you got me going. God dang. Yeah. And you're in the grocery store, and like even the same foods they have here, it's totally different, dude. No dyes, and it's like, why? Why do I need? Not that I eat Fruity Pebbles, but I have. Why does my Fruity Pebble need to be bright red? Like it's if you color it with beet juice and it's a little bit red, I'm cool with that. I don't give a shit. It tastes the same. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff drives me nuts, dude.
True.
I'll still never forget when you were doing those blue chews, and then you came in for
and
it was like bright, looks like
methylene blue. It's not meth.
Yes.
Methylene blue. Look it up. Yeah,
and it was literally the color of the can.
It will turn.
I was making inappropriate jokes about the activities you were doing.
Smurfs, yeah,
Smurfs.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
We're pushing time. I got to wrap this up, boys.
Nope, absolutely.
Any other pressing things you want to jump on real quick?
Yeah.
We can always. We know where to find you. You'll be back.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's
always a pleasure, bro.
Dude, excited for your next adventure. I think it's going to be big time. Like I said, I've always said it, no matter which agency I was with locally, what's better for our surrounding agencies, good for us. And I mean that in contracts, reduce crime, proactive policing, citizen support, all of that. I think anybody who listens to us knows where our support lies, right? And that's with the men and women that have boots on ground here. And for anybody political out there that wants to come on and challenge me on whether or not we actually need to pay our officers, I am here and waiting.
That'd be a fun debate.
Let's do that. I would enjoy that immensely.
I don't think you're going to get any takers.
No, I would love to. Oh, man.
I've offered the world, like, hey, come on. We'll do a podcast type setting. They never show up.
We'll mediate for it.
Maybe they've got a perspective that I don't, right? I'll put it out there. I can't think of one, but I'd welcome it. Maybe you've got a different perspective, and I know budgeting's not easy, but what you don't skimp on is your local law enforcement, especially when they're out there killing it.
Yep. Well, Seth Green, thank you, brother.
Yeah, cheers,
thank
bro.
you.
Always
Till
pleasure.
next time.
Yeah,
Later.
Good to have you, buddy.